Smiling evening, all of you guys. Today we're gonna discuss about how the Spring Boot internally working. Here the prerequisite is needs to have the fundamentals and intermediate level of understanding of Spring Boot. Those audience only can understand the internals here. So it's gonna be vague in terms of understanding. So we're gonna do an introduction level for this at something exciting, guys. So before I talk about this things, so we're gonna discuss about first Spring Boot and the Spring Boot. We're gonna discuss about Spring Boot internals here. We're not gonna discuss about. If the audience are very much comfortable with basic or beginner level, that's pretty good because we're gonna deep dive. We're gonna talk about the research what we have done in internals understanding of Spring Boot, and we're gonna explain you that very well, very detailed. Okay. So this session is gonna be about Spring Boot internals. So when I say Spring Boot internals, so every core developer here of Java knows that Spring Boot internals will have basically annotations, right? So can someone tell what exactly is annotation means? In Java, we call annotations. So annotations are basically it's like runtime feature that enables us to enable some kind of libraries, and it's enabling some kind of features that you want to do it, right? So in Spring Boot, if you write annotation at entity for a class, it is basically we know that it is to tell that this class can be used to insert data into database. But why are we using this annotations, right? Because this annotation is used to mark the Java class as a persistent entity. That is a class that whose instance can be created in database. So before we talk about that in depth, okay, we're going to talk about different annotations in Spring Boot. So before I give you demonstration, so for all the smiling coders here, so I'm going to demonstrate one example here. You can have a look at this code here. So if you look at here, I am trying to specify this code here. I'm going to demonstrate this. I'm going to demonstrate an approach here. For an instance, if I'm writing a class name called as CoderRange, okay, and this class can have some, I will write down some kind of class members, let's say string, something it's called as meetup, okay. So for this, if I use an annotations if I specify entity, okay, my entity, okay, and I have to specify, so for me it's a class name is CoderRange, but I will write down this as name called what, customer table, okay. So I'll write down as customer table. So what happens when you write this annotations internally? That's what I'm going to describe here, okay. So for all the smiling coders, understand this very detailed. What's happening internally? For this, I have written one more code here. Clearly understand. I've written this internal annotations that I'm going to write down. This is called custom annotation definitions. This is internal annotation which is already pre-built. Okay, you can use that. So whenever if I define this annotation called my entity, you can see inside my class what is my class name is CoderRange. I can write down here CoderRange dot. Can you see there is something I can specify called class? Okay, so left hand side you have to assign. This will give me, actually this is gonna specify me, I have to specify again class. It's a generic class. Inside this generic class, I have to specify what is my class name. My class name is maybe I think I have to specify in I will just specify its notations, okay. And then inside this my class name is user, and then I'll write down us. Okay, so this is what I would use this, okay. And this is annotations. If you see here, this US is an object, okay. What object? It's a generic class object. What is this generic class? Can you see this generic class? This generic class is actually named generic class, which has internally, if you observe, it has something again internally another classes. that is reflection data, enclosing method, atomic class, and annotation data. Inside this, can you see there are some attributes, annotation, enum, lot of attributes, right? So this is actually the internal class of annotations, which has all these parameters. Someone who has been coding internally in Java, but we will never have to think about what's happening internally, but this is an internal code. Now this internal code, why did I write down? You might get this question. Because this object, using this object, we can do various things. I can write an if condition. Inside this if condition, I can specify u as dot. There's a method called isAnnotation. So I can use this isAnnotation present. Inside this method, I have to pass actually the annotation class scope resolution, colon, I have to specify what is my class name. So in case I have to write down my class name is, again, I have to specify colon, what is the annotation class name is my entity dot class, which I have to specify. So this is how we will just specify here in this annotation. So generally we will do this annotation class dot. This is a condition to check whether this is happening. So now you can see there is one second, there's an extra bracket is specified here. And there's one more error. It says that is annotation present once again. Okay, extra bracket is not closed here. Okay, this is a method call. Inside this method call, I am just writing here is annotation dot. Okay. Okay, so there is a simple error that I've done once again. You can do this use case like this. Maybe I have specified here. So if you see here in this use dot is annotation method, one second, the arguments that I have to pass. So let's say I am trying to call this method, which is cannot be applied to the given types. Okay. Now this use annotation will take CoderRange class. But if you want, you can pass inside this annotation class. There is a class called annotation class. I think that class is, once again, this is a class that you will get here. Let me just take this class. Sorry. Now what this will do, internal, this is internals. Maybe most of us will not have tried to understand this, or even we never try to bother about this, right? But internally, this is what happening. So it is taking your internal code of this thing and then getting you this annotation things here. So you can specify your annotation. This is what it will basically do this. Can you see that? It is, I'm trying to specify annotation class, scope relation, my entity dot class. So you can see that I have my entity dot class, which I'm passing, right? So you can write if here. Okay, now you can see this condition is fine. So if this condition is true, whether this US is actually annotation object only, right? It's present because annotation is present for this class. For which class? CoderRange has annotation. So this condition will be true. That time you can also get to know what annotation is present here, right? So how do you do is you write US, that object dot get annotation method is there. So you can use get annotation. So you can use get annotation. Inside this you have to pass. So here you have to pass the same way. This annotation dot class, you have to pass this information. that will return you another object actually. So you have to pass this in the arguments here. Okay, so that's something you are supposed to do here. And so once you do this here, you will get a return object here. This my get annotation will return you again my entity. It is going to return you my entity object. So you have to take a return object of my entity. My entity, you can take RET is equal to, correct? And then you can print something. If you want, you can use system.out.println and you can print the value here. So you can print the value here. So you can see here RET dot. So I'll not do anything. I'll say found Venkat page like this. So this means now you are able to understand how annotation is internally working now. So you might be saying that, Venkatesh, what's the benefit for me to understand here? Why I need to know annotations internals here? Yeah, there's a core reasons. Guys, if you really want to take something great today, and if you want to really enjoy something, you're gonna see that what's happening internally in the Spring Boot, then stay for next 15 minutes. You will understand every in depth of it. Okay. So in my code now, what happened? The main function is executed. I was able to create an object to two annotation classes. One is user and I was CoderRange. Then I was trying to call a method to check whether this annotation for this class annotation is present. If it is this present, I'll try to get the annotation information into this one more object and print the value. Yeah, it printed, right? So do you see that found Venkatesh, my entity is with value what? Customer table. Actually, my entity is found with user table. It is giving you that because this has got customer table and this class has got user table. It means what? You are able to understand in the annotation, whatever argument you pass, you are able to access that. Yes, that's what happened here. Now, annotations internal working is clear to everyone. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions here? Smiling coders. Now, after this, I'm going to show you how the internal annotation is going to work. Any questions? Akash, Ankush, Arjun, Ashik, Divya, Narendra. Any questions, guys? Ritu, Uma, Raghavendra. Any questions? Hello? Guys, do you have any questions? Did you understand how the annotation code is generated? Now, can we see how a custom generation annotations can we do? Hello? Can we see a custom generation annotations? Maximize speed. I'm maximizing. Okay, so I've done the maximization now. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the customization annotations. Now, how the customization annotations works. Okay. So this is actually the code to write a custom annotations. So how you can write your own annotations. So I have to write here at return. You can use this retention. Okay, inside this retention, you have to pass retention policy. Dot runtime. You have to specify that. That's a way you are going to write down here retention policy dot runtime. So you have to specify this is your custom annotations. That's a custom. That's an interface. Okay, you can specify this. So inside this there is an interface named as my entity, and you can see I have now you can understand what is annotation. Annotations are nothing but it's again an interface. That interface has got it will have some method name, and you are trying to pass this data to some methods only. You can understand it that way, right? So this is a value method and it takes default. That's the default thing you can specify here. So this is custom annotations. Now if you want to know internally what's happening, listen, I'm gonna go to this code and delete all this Java. Okay, one second. Let me go to my actual Java. This is my actual Java code. So let me remove all this code. Okay. Now, once I've done this, now what happens, you see, now the moment I click on this, run this code, it's gonna generate me, it's gonna give me two entity, I put it entity classes, two entity classes. One is user table, one is customer table. The moment you see that, what happens? You can see that there is some code generation happening here, annotation classes generation main, and this code generation happened here, okay? That is, I mean, then next thing is that you can see there's one more class called CoderRange.class. There is one more called what? Entity.class. This is how internally it will generate it. So how this internal generation has happened? See here, class CoderRange, that class has string meetup and constructor was provided. Then entity class, then there was a user class which has constructor also. So this code was decompiled from your these things. That's what happens here, right? This is all happened because it's from your, this is a basic whatever you want to specify, you can do this. That's the use cases of annotations what we have done here. This is little more internal. If you have any questions, you can ask me. This session is not going to be even 0% boring, guys. It's gonna take you mind-blowing, interesting facts. I'm gonna give you in next 5 minutes. Are you ready, guys? Are you excited? I cannot see any smiling face here, but at least I'll show my smiling face. Hopefully you can see my smiling face here. Yes, I am here smiling. If you guys smiling, yes, you can comment or you can use reactions. So I'm continuing further in this. I'm going to talk about the next part of the Spring is the callback part. Okay, so everybody will be knowing that in Spring, when you write a method, on top of it we write annotations at pre-persist. Okay. Sorry. So if you are looking at an example of callback here, so on top of a method, you specify at pre-persist. It means what? That's a callback. That's a callback. Before calling this method, it will call an inbuilt method, right? So that is how the callbacks internally happening here. So okay, that is fine. Now you might be getting a question, Venkatesh, if I write a basic Java, any Spring application, what is happening internally? Can anyone hear any Java smiling coder? Can you tell here what's happening? Akash, Ankush, Arjun, Divya, Narendra, Piyush, Ritu, Uma, anyone tell me, if you write a Spring Boot application at Spring Boot application as annotation, then if you write like this, what happens internally? Can anyone tell me what's happening internally? Hello? Come on, smiling coders.
It initializes the web container and
okay. So internally what happens is, first when you write a main class entry, it will see what at Spring Boot application, right? The moment it sees Spring Boot application, that's an entry annotation, right? It will scan the components. Means what? It will see what all annotations your code has been, whether it may be Rust controller or services or repositories or configurations. All that are registered inside application context. Correct? It will be registering that inside what? Application context. That is what little internals that it does here. So it means it will scan in your code what all other annotations you have used. That can be REST controller or service, repository, or configuration, or whatever it is. Okay, so that's something internally happening here. So that's a whole idea about all are registered inside an application context, right? Everyone knows why are we, now there is the next question you will ask, why are you creating an application context? Anyone tell me here, why are we doing creating an application context object? Because when you call run method and then you register your class name, that returns you an application context. Why? Guys, I cannot, I want audience to really be very interactive, guys. So come on. Smiling